The Giraffe and the Pelly and Me by Roald Dahl. Not far from where I lived there in Quill, old empty wooden house standing all by itself on the side of the road. I long to explore inside it, but the door is always locked, and when I peer through a window, all I can see is the darkness and dust. I know the ground floor used once to be a shop because I can still see the faded lettering across the front which says the Lubber. My mother has told me that in our part of the country in the old days, a grubber was another name for a sweet shop, and now every time I look at it, I think to myself what a lovely old sweet shop it must have been. On the shop window itself, somebody was painting in white the word for sale. One morning, I noticed the for sale had been scraped off the shop window, and in its place, somebody had painted sod. I stood there staring at the new writing and wishing like mad that it had been me who had bought it, because then I would have been able to make it into a grubber all over again. I have always longed to own a sweet shop. The sweet shop of my dreams would be rotted from top to bottom with serpent stalker and caramel fog and Marcian toffee and sugar snorter and butter gumbo and thousands of glorious things like that. Oh boy, what I couldn't have done with that old rubber shop if it had been mine. On my next visit to the grubber, I was standing across the road gazing at the wonderful old building, and suddenly an enormous bathtub came sailing out through one of the second floor window and crashed right onto the middle of the road. A few moments later, a white porcelain laboratory fan with a wooden seat still on it came flying out of the same window and landed with a wonderful sputtering crash just beside the bathtub. This was followed by a kitchen sink and an empty canary cage and a four-poster bed and two hot water bottle and a rocking horse and a sewing machine and goodness knows what else besides. I look as though some madman was slipping out of the hall of the inside of the building, because now pieces of staircase said beat of the banisters and a whole lot of old floorboards came whistling through the window. Then there was silence. I waited, but not another sound came from within the building. I crossed the road and stood right under the windows and called out, "Is somebody at home?" There was no answer. In the end, it began to get dark, so I had to turn away and turned back, walking home. But you can bet your life anything was going to stop me from hurrying back 3 years again tomorrow morning to see what next surprise was going to be. When I got back to the grubber house the next morning, the first thing I noticed was a new door. The dirty round door had been taken out, and in each place someone had fit a brand new red one. The new was fantastic. It was twice as high as the other been and it looked ridiculous. I couldn't begin to imagine who would want a tremendous tall door like that in his house unless it was a giant. As well as this, somebody had scratched away the soap notice on the shop window, and now there was a whole lot of different writing all over the glass. I stood there reading it and tried to figure out what on earth this all meant. I tried to catch some sound of movement inside the house, but there was none. Until, all of a sudden, out of the corner of my eye, I noticed that one of the windows on the top floor was slowly beginning to open outwards. Then a head appeared at the open window. I stared at the head. The head stared back at me with big round eyes. Suddenly, a second window was flung wide open out of a crazy thing. A gigantic white bird hopped out and perched on the windowsill. I knew what this one was because of its amazing beak, which was shaped like a huge orange-colored basin. The pelican looked down at me and sang out, "Oh, how I wish for a big fat fish. I as hungry as ever could be. A dish of fish is my only wish. How far away from the sea?" "We are a long way from the sea," I called back to him. "But there is fishmonger in the village not far away." "A fish what?" "A fishmonger." "Now, what on earth would that be?" asked the pelican. "I have heard of a fish pie and a fish cake and a fish finger, but I have ever heard a fishmonger. Are these mongers good to eat?" This question baffled me a bit, so I said, "Who is your friend in the next window?" "She is the giraffe," the pelican answered. "Is she not wonderful? Her legs are on the ground floor and her head is looking out of the top window. As if all this wasn't enough, the window on the first floor was now flung wide open and out popped a monkey. The monkey stood on the windowsill and did the jiggly little dance. He was so skinny, he seemed to be made only out of very bit of wire, but he danced wonderfully well, and I clapped and cheered and did a little dance myself in return.